HTML forms provide a way to collect and send data from users on web pages. Forms are essential for interactive web applications, enabling user input for various purposes. We all come across different platforms whereby we'll be prompted to, you know, release our information or to drop our information, right? And the best way to collect users' information is to present or to display a form, and then you can interact with it. So let's see how we can create form. We use the form element to create form in HTML. So we use the form element to define the form, and then the form also it has a couple of attributes. We are not going to focus much on the attribute because this is mainly for maybe if you are doing back end development and you want to process the form data, right? Then you need to understand what this action and of course method of posting the form data, or I mean what the attributes are all about. But for now, since we are focusing on the user interface of our web application, you might not really need to go deep into what action or method is all about. All right. So again, we use the form element to define a form in HTML. And then some of the attributes of the form element, as you can see, we have the action, which specifies where to send form data when submitted. So when a user clicks on the submit button of a particular form, right, the back-end user or even the front end can actually determine where the form data to be submitted. Most form data usually redirect users to another page. For example, if you open up your Facebook or the first time you interacted with Facebook, I'm very sure we all saw a form, right? There was a form that was presented to us to collect our information, right? And after that, we click the sign up or register now button. And immediately after we click the button, we were redirected to a page, probably the home page of Facebook, where we can see other people's posts, right? So this is a similar situations for the action attribute. So it specifies where to send form data when submitted. And then we have the method. So method specifies the HTTP method, either get or post for submitting form data. So we have different method actually. In fact, we have the patch, we have the put, we have the delete method, depending on what you want to do. But majorly, we have the get and post. You can get the form data or you can post the form data. For instance, if you are posting or if you are creating a post on Facebook or on Twitter or on the Instagram, so you are posting to the server. So in that case, you are using the post method to send your data to the server. Just as I have mentioned, we don't need to go deep into this because by doing so, we'll be doing more of back end, and which I don't really want to bother us with uh, those things right now. And then we have the autocomplete, which controls whether form on autofill is enabled. It is either on or off. We also have the target. We see this target in the HTML anchor tag that's linked, right, which specifies where to display the response after submitting the form. So we have the value for self or blank. All right. Now we have form controls. That's input types. Input types. We have the input element, the text area, we have the select, we have the button, we have label, we have field set, we have legend, and then attributes. Each form control has specific attributes like type, name, value, placeholder, required, disabled, etc. Now, example of input type. So we can create an input type this way. Text input, label, and then we have the input. I mean, please let's get our hands dirty and let's save ourselves from all this explanation for now. Okay, so I have opened up this Facebook page. This is a good example of what a form looks like, right? Look at this form. This form has two input fields. The first one is collecting the user email, as you can see from this placeholder. This is what we call placeholder. This text here, which tells the browser what this input field is all about, right? Email address or phone number. So which means the user is required to drop or to type in his or her email or phone number. And you can see the second input field as well, which is self-explanatory. I mean, a layman will understand that this form is asking for his or her password. And after that, we have the button, okay, to submit the form. Or you can actually create, you can use this button as well to create a new account. And if you click, for instance, if I click on create new account, you see, this is another form. So this form is asking for my first name, this one for my surname, my date of birth, right, my gender, my phone number, new password, and usually we have this button to submit the form. So let's see how we can create form in HTML. So quickly, I'm going to set another document, time around that we name it form.html. HTML form, right? Let's name this. Okay, HTML form. So the first thing we need is the form element, which is the container for the entire form, right? And then we have label. Remember, we have label. Let's say, for instance, we want a form to select the first name of our user, right? First name, and then we need an input field actually. So the box where the user can actually type in his or her name. So input field. So the input element is a self-closing element, as you can see, right? And then it has a couple of attributes. From the slide, you see the input type. It has attributes like the type of the input, the name of the input, the value, the placeholder, and then you can specify whether the field is required or not. And obviously, you can disable the input element. That's if you don't want the user to interact with the form. All right. So I'm going to give this a type of text because to get your user's first name, obviously names are in text, right? They're in text form. They are not in number form. So text. Let's save this first and see the output. Good. So you see, we have first name and then the input field. I can type in anything in my name. So I can say similarly, right? Does that. And also you should observe something. We have the label first name and the input field on the same line. So this tells us that label and input are inline level elements. We talked about the categories of HTML elements. We mentioned that we have two types, the block level element and the inline level element. Remember, the block level element always starts on a new line and occupy the full width of its parent element. On the other hand, the inline level elements, they do not start on a new line. Instead, they take the exact width of their content. So label and input are a perfect example of an inline level element, and that is why they are rendered on the same line, first name and the input field. Please, are we all together?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes,
sir.
yes.
Yes, we
All
are.
right, thank you. Okay, so type is set to text, and I mean text is actually the default. Whether you specify, if you do not specify it, automatically the input we have the its type set to text. All right. Then the next one is name. The name. I will give this first name. First name without space. Actually, I'm not going to give it any space. And basically, what this name does is that it uniquely identifies this input element on this form. So it is more like a unique identifier, just like an ID. So name elements uniquely identify an input element in a form. So whenever you are submitting the form data, right, this name will identify, or it will identify this element. So if the user clicks on the submit button, whatever text the user pass inside this input element will be sent to the server. And for the server to identify the text, it will come from this name attribute. All right. Actually, if I refresh, you are not going to see anything seriously. But to see that in action, right? You will see it on the URL. So I will quickly introduce the submit button. So permit me to create a button here. I can create a button and set the type attribute to submit. So another value for the type attribute is submit. So let me say register now. Register now. Save first name, first name. Good. So I'm going to refresh. Now take a look at this URL. You see, at the end of the URL, we have form.html, right? Now I'm going to type in some content here. Let's say John. And then I will click on this register now button. Register now. Now look at the URL again. Now you see we have this question mark after the form.html. And then what can you see? First name set to what? John. First name set to the text that I pass inside the input element. And remember what I said about the name attribute. The name attribute for this input element is first name, right? From our index.html. First name. So which means the name has what successfully identify this input element in our form element. Okay, yeah, so that's that for the name attribute. Button. Again, you see everything is actually on a straight line. So which means button is also an inline level element. So it takes the exact width of its content, and that is why it is not starting on a new line. An inline level element do not start on a new line. They take the exact width of their content. But a block level element, and a perfect example is this H1. Okay, H1 is a block level element, and they start on a new line and occupy the full width of their parent element. All right, in case if you want to learn more about block level element, I think that's the last the last part of our last session actually. That should be the video 8 or 9 thereabouts. Okay. But to kind of make it look nicer, I'm going to create a paragraph. I'm going to wrap this in a paragraph. Remember, paragraph is a block level element. So I want this to start on a new line. So I will turn this save because I don't want button to be on the same line as the label and the input. Good. So I want something like this. Okay. First name. Let's see another one. Another attribute for our form. Where are you? Okay, we have value. Yeah, we have value. We have placeholder. We have required. We have disabled. So let's go for value first. Now, again, you can set a default value right from your HTML. For instance, if I want to set a default value for this first name, let's say Smith. If I save this code and head back to the browser and refresh the page, then we're going to see Smith inside this input element. Let's try it. Boom. So you see, we have Smith as the default value of this input element. And then the user can then modify it to something else. They may decide to change it to maybe Michael, right? But whenever you refresh the page, it will go back to Smith because that is the default value we set for this input element. And for this kind of situation, the best way we can use this is if you are creating a platform whereby user actually want to pay for an item, right? And you do not want the user to change the value, maybe the price of a product. And let me create another input element. Sorry. Paragraph. label, let's say for instance, okay, I'm going to explain what this for attribute means shortly. Let's see, price, price, then build. We have number type as well. Number. We're going to see that shortly though. And then number, let's say value. The price is 3,000. Save to the browser. So if we actually want to consider this price as a fixed value, right, that means we need to disable this input element because users can easily change this. I mean, as a user, I can actually change this to maybe 1.5 if I do not want to pay the whole 3,000. Or in fact, I may even change it to 0 and get the product for free. You get the point. But then if I disable the input field, for instance, I will first refresh to get the 3,000 and then use the disabled attributes. We have disabled. Save, that's all. Disabled is a Boolean attribute. I have explained what a Boolean attribute is. A Boolean attribute does not accept a value. Just as the way we have name. Name is an attribute here, and then we set its value to first name. Text is also an attribute, and then it has the value of text. But in this case, disabled doesn't accept any value. And we call this type of attribute a Boolean attribute because they either return true or false. So which means if they are not there, it means the value is false. But if we specify it in the element, it means the value is true. So if I save to the browser and refresh, so you see, I can't modify this. So I'm typing, I can't change this content right now. So I have disabled this input field. Users cannot change this value. All right. So that's that for value, and of course I have explained what disabled actually means in that manner. So let's proceed. We also have placeholder. So placeholder is just a descriptive content or a descriptive text of what the input element is all about. So I'm going to get rid of this because it doesn't make sense in that place. So placeholder, say the first name, save, and boom. So you see, we have the placeholder entire first name. And if I click on this place, if I start typing, I won't see the placeholder anymore. So placeholder is just a descriptive text that describes what the element is all about. Okay, for label also has a special attribute called for. Okay, this for actually works with ID attribute, right? Now it is a way of connecting the label and the input together. Are we together? We have this label. Now we have two labels now in our form, and we have two input elements. This label 1 and this label 2. Then we have input 1 and input 2. So if you want to connect this label to this input, right, you use the for attribute in the label element and then an ID attribute. But you have to set their value to be the same. So which means whatever value you set for for attribute has to be the same as the ID attribute for your input. So let's try it. So I'm going to set the for attribute to label for let's say first dash name, and then the ID can place it anywhere, doesn't matter, as long as it is in the input element. So if I say first dash name, the same name has to be the same case sensitive, the same spelling. All right, so save and then head back to the browser. Save. Now we can't see this in action right now, but to see it in action, it means you have to click on the label. If I click on the label, just observe this input element. You will notice that the input element we get focused on. If I click on first name, can you see? So the input element is now what? Is now focused. So the browser actually focus on the input element, and then the user can now start typing his or her first name. Let's create another field. In case if you have any question, This is the time to ask the next. We have last name, last dash name, label content, last name, built. So type set text, just as I mentioned the other time that it is the default. ID, so it has to be the same thing as the 4 attributes. I'm just going to copy it to avoid any mistake. Paste. So the name, remember, this name uniquely identify the input elements in the form element. Okay, so first, last name, then I'm going to place here entire last name. Save. Refresh. Okay, look at it here. Again, if I click on first name, the browser focused on the input element for the first name, right? Okay, how about if I click on last name? Let's see. Okay, please, before that, I'm going to demonstrate that. I will remove the 4 attributes for last name just to show that the label is the one doing the job. Excuse me. So we don't have the 4 attributes on the label attribute. Similarly, we don't have the ID and the input element. So we go ahead and refresh. Now I just click on last name. Nothing is happening basically. The browser refused to focus on the input element for last name, and that's because we haven't established a connection between the label and the input element. And to do that, remember, you set the 4 attributes on the label element, you give it any name you want. So I prefer the last dash name, and then you go to the input element for that particular label and set the ID attribute to that name you set for the 4 attributes of the label element. So last name, save, then back to the browser, refresh. Now if I click on last name, the browser easily focused on the input element. Please, do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Now, one more thing before we proceed. Look at this. Look at this form at this point. This form at this point, even without entering my first name and my last name, I can submit the form. Like I click, you see, if I click submit, we have first name set to nothing. You see, first name set to empty, like there is nothing actually, and then last name set to nothing, basically. I'm pretty sure we have interacted with a form on the web whereby if you do not enter either your first name or maybe your username or the password, the browser will prompt you that first name is required or your username is required or your password is required, right? So let's see how we can do the same with our HTML using the required attributes. So we have those special attributes that we can set on the input element called required. So required is another Boolean attribute in the HTML. Remember, a Boolean attribute does not accept a value. When it is there, it means that the attribute is true. If it is not there, it means the attribute is false. So required, save. Now, let's see. I will head back to the browser. The required is on first name, right? Yes, first name. Now, I will enter my last name actually. I say John. Oh, did I just say? Sorry. Okay, dialog box is going to pop up shortly. I'm not saving. All right. So last name John, but first name is empty right now. Now let me. So I'm going to submit the form. Submit. What just happened? The form submitted. So let me see what is happening here. Did I save? Yes, I did. Save. Submit again. Okay, good. Look at it. It says what? Please fill out this field. So which means I cannot submit this form if this first name is not filled. That is the meaning. And that's because I have passed the required attribute in the input element of my HTML form. Do you understand?
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So same thing, you can make your last name required as well. Required. I think we've covered major uh, attributes for input element. So let's proceed. Though there's another type. We've seen type for text. Okay, text, and then number. So let's see email. So we also have email. So we have to create a paragraph and then label for email. So input type. So we have email type. Okay, email type, and then so I'm going to set the ID to establish a connection between this label. No, what did I just did? This is not what I want.
You are writing okay.
Yeah, thank you. I just observed that now. Okay, so ID email to establish a connection between this label and the input element, and then the name that will uniquely identify the input element in our HTML form. I will set it to email. It doesn't matter. They can have the same name. It doesn't matter. But the browser knows how to identify or figure out what an ID or what the name attribute is. Right. So I'll proceed and give it a placeholder of enter your email, and then be required. Required. All right. Okay. You see. So I tried to submit the form, and the browser actually prompts me that I should fill out this field. Otherwise, no, I won't be able to submit the form. That's the meaning. Let me refresh first to get the email. So we have our email. So I'm going to enter John Doe, John Doe. So I will just say John Doe just to test the email, then submit. So do you see? Please include an at in the email address. John Doe is missing an at. Obviously, this is not a correct email ID, right? Because usually email ID they come with at symbol. So maybe at yahoo.com or at gmail.com or at your website.com. So this this prompt here is as a result of the type attribute that we set on this input element. So by setting type to email, the browser will always validate that field to ensure that the value that the user will pass is a correct email ID. Okay, so that's that. Another thing is we can get label for DOB, date of birth. So we can use type X. We have another type for date. Okay, date. So I'm just going to save this or give it required at least to validate that field. Refresh, and you see, just by passing dates as the value of this type attribute, we have this calendar. So if I click this icon, you see I can actually select my date of birth. So let's say I was born on October 9, 2024. You see, this is the value. We need the name attribute actually so that we can see the value in our URL. So we name this DOB, date of birth. Okay, then next up, let's look at how we can use checkboxes. We have checkboxes, we have radio button as well, and even the select drop down. So for checkboxes, I'm going to comment. So for checkbox, I want to create a label for hobbies, right? Yeah, hobbies. Label. Hobbies. So the type here is going to be checkbox. Okay, and then you can set the ID to hobby, and then of course we need name. You can use hobbies as well, hobbies, and then the value time around what we want. Let's say singing, and then I will get the content. What if the form requires passport photograph? Okay, so there is another special attribute we set on the form, which is the ENC type. That's ENCTYPE. This is another advanced form actually, because if you are going to set your if you are going to upload an image, right? Definitely you need some backend services to get the point. But then for you to upload an image, you need to pass the ENC type actually. Is this ENC type exactly? You see this ENC type, and when the value of the method attribute is post, the ENC type is the MIME type of content that is used to submit the form to the server. Okay, possible values are, so we have this multi-part / form data. All right. But then there is an input element that you can use to gain access to any files, maybe any document like your images, right? Maybe you want to upload your image, and you set the type element to file. We're going to see that shortly. So singing, but because of time, I will just copy this input because I want more than one. I want more than one of these. So copy the same paragraph, paste. Let's say hobby name, singing, dancing. Swimming. I'll keep it simple. I'm going to keep it simple, and let's take a look at the output. So, and boom. So you see, we have checkboxes. So probably if I know how to sing, or if singing is one of my hobbies, I'll just check this. Actually, I can't even dance to save my life. So maybe swimming. So I may say singing and swimming are my hobbies, but dancing, you can't actually find me there. So yeah, that's that for checkboxes. We also have radio button. Now the difference between a checkbox and a radio button is that in checkboxes you're allowed to select more than one options, right? As you can see, I have the privilege to select all options or one or more, basically. That's the whole idea. But a radio button, you are only required to select one out of multiple options. For example, a gender, I mean, you can't be a male and a female at the same time, right? So a radio button is suitable for something like a gender, right? Because we believe a person can either be a male or a female. So I'm going to create another. So you can just take your time to go through this form and first each one after the other. So I just want to cover more form elements as possible. So label for gender, excuse me, label for gender, label for gender. So for the input type, which sets to radio, we have radio type, radio, and then ID to establish a connection between the label and the input, right? I'm going to give it an ID of gender. Obviously, we need the name as well. So you need to identify the input, then the value. We have male, then the content, what you want the user to see for that radio button. So type, radio, ID, gender, or first, just to, I actually want to prove something, so I'm going to get rid of this name first. Value, female. Okay, I don't know, maybe for some reason, some might not belong to either of the above category. So let's have others. Save. So I'm going to save this and then refresh. So gender, we have male, female, and then others. Now look at this. I'm going to select male and then select female as well. So you see, I can select both male and female at the same time. This doesn't actually make sense. This is not a good user experience. So as an online visitor, I should be able to select just one option from this tree. And the reason I can select all options here is because I haven't specified a unique identifier for all these input elements, which is the name attribute that is missing. So, which means I need to introduce the name attribute to uniquely identify these three options. So gender, the same name, save, then refresh again. Now, let's see. If I select male at first, right? Now, the moment I select female, male will be deselected and then female will be selected. So look at it. So I can't select more than one. It's either I am a male or a female or others. So these are it works in HTML. Maybe one more or two more before we close. The person who asks for the file, right, to upload file, there's an input element. Let me create upload. Let's see upload image label for img. That's image. I will say upload image. I will set the input type to file, a file, right? And give it ID of img, name of img as well. So save. And if I head back to the browser and refresh, so you see I have this button with the default content of choose file. So if I click this choose file button, automatically a dialog box will pop up, okay, and then I can browse through my computer, then select the image that I want to upload right in the browser. So, but right now there is no any backend services that is going to upload that to the server. So, but then if you want to achieve that, that is how you can do that in HTML. Set the type to file, right? Then that way the user can easily get this button to select an image from his or her computer. So let's look at one more. Okay, no, I think let's talk right now. Okay, one more. I actually want to show us two more, or maybe this last one, the text area. The text area, label for file. With this radio setup work for checkbox? With this, I didn't get that. Radio setup work for checkbox having the same. I don't want to open my Telegram actually. Sorry. Please can I ask the question? Just talk. So label for maybe your biography. Someone's mic is on.
Someone asked about what if the form requires a passport, like just if camera you need to not like
I,
uploading
I,
image,
I
something
just
like
did
that.
that now, right? I just did that now. This is it here.
No, he's talking about camera directly.
Camera directly.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess in that case you have to integrate some kind of plugins, okay, to achieve that. A plugin will work in that scenario. But if you actually want to upload directly from your computer, say for example, you have the image, someone's mic is on, please. And simply speak. So if you want to upload directly, you have the image in your computer, you can just use this file and then you gain access to your computer documents. So your biography, we need we need a more wider area, right? Or text input. So I mean, I can't type my biography in this tiny box. So let's say I have about 1,000 characters of text that I actually want to type. And it's going to get long and this case, when you won't see, I can't peruse my content. Someone should help me. I don't know who is that person. So we need the text a
Mr.
more
Oji,
wide. What?
there is one person that his mic is not mute. Mr.
Okay,
Oji,
okay.
posted into mute.
Mr. OG, please. I don't know, help us. Thank you. All right, so we have the text area, text area basically. So name is a bio, then ID as well. ID bio. So I'm going to say and refresh. So you see, we have this. So and one good thing about this is that you can interact with the box. Excuse me, you can interact with the box. You can expand it, you can reduce it, you can increase it, and you can type to the box that you want. And then when you are done, you submit the form. Yeah, that's that for HTML form. Please, do you have any question?
Sir, please explain the biography again.
The biography, that's the text area. Good. Now, the text area is a way of displaying a more wider field for your user to enter long content, right? I mean, for first name, if you want to collect your user's first name, you don't need to show a text area or a wider box, just as this one. So a smaller box like this one is okay to accept a first name or last name of the user. But in a situation whereby you actually want your users to enter long content, right? This is, presenting an input element like this is not a good experience. So you need to rely on a wider box, and to achieve that, we use the text area.